Today we're going to be discussing something that I get questions about all the time, which is puppy biting. And what I can say from experience is that most times the puppy is actually biting a normal amount for the situation that they're in. There's lots of different reasons why a puppy bites and mouths, and we are going to get into those today because they will mouth or bite you. They are a puppy, is what they do. So let's get into it. The number one thing I'm always going to mention before and over anything else is pain. If you, in your heart of hearts, feel like my puppy is biting too much, go to your vet and have them check for pain. I would look out for things like, is your puppy yelping or mouthing or biting a lot when you go to pick them up? Are they yelping or mouthing or biting a lot when you are playing? And then also after eating is a big one. You know your puppy best. If there is a gut feeling, hey, I don't think something is 100% right here, go and seek veterinary advice. And the next thing I wanted to discuss is puppies and punishment. There are going to be a handful of people out there that tell you that punishing your puppy when they bite you is the number one way to get them to stop biting you. And yes, it probably will get them to stop. I think what it actually teaches them is that they have a valid reason to be concerned. There is a valid reason to not like hands coming near you. If there's a valid reason for them to be concerned, then at some point there will be a valid reason for them to bite. One of the responses to fear in dogs is to bite. We do not want our puppy to grow up with that being their choice of communication when they're scared. So let's discuss why puppies bite. The number one reason why puppies bite is that they're a puppy. So a certain amount of puppy mouthing or biting is absolutely normal. Reason number two why puppies might bite is genetics. Some breeds of dog were bred to have things in their mouths. So it's not surprising to me that they want your hand in their mouth. Reason number three is the litter size or the placement of the litter or how your puppy has been raised. This is mainly going to be an issue for two types of puppies. Number one would be the singular pup, so they had no litter mates. These puppies usually struggle quite a bit with bite inhibition. They're not really sure how hard their bite really is. The other issue might be if the mum has rejected the pup. In these cases, puppies could still have a litter. If the mum is just rejecting one pup, that can be an issue and lead to a more mouthy and bitey dog. Reason number four would be a learned response or a behavior chain. If you are reacting the same way every single time your puppy bites you and it's reinforcing for the puppy, they're going to do it again. This could look like shoving a toy or a piece of food right in their face while they're still latched onto you. I think there is a way of doing this, essentially the same thing, but in a better way. Reason number five your puppy might be biting is a lack of appropriate outlets. If you never give your puppy the chance to chew and shred and bite things, and then you're wondering why they're chewing and shredding and biting you, I might have an answer for you. It's because they simply do not have an appropriate outlet. This is not something we can prevent, but it is something we can fulfill. They need an outlet. Number six might be that your puppy's not having enough playtime or appropriate playtime, or what I like to call an iPad puppy or an iPad dog. These are puppies that are kept in their pen or their crate all day and are just given solo enrichment toys like Kongs or snuffle mats or treat balls. This is when I see dogs that launch themselves at you, dogs that jump up at you, dogs that fly by, bite you, dogs that whenever they see another dog, they're desperate to get to them and they're pulling on walks and desperate for sniffs because they are seeking connection everywhere they go because they're not getting fulfilled with connection during the day. And on the opposite end of this, we've got puppies that aren't getting enough rest and sleep. Truth is, if you're fulfilling your puppy throughout the day, they're probably going to sleep an appropriate amount. Your puppy doesn't just need sleep, they need deep rest. They need time to decompress. Everything is new to them, and that's quite stressful. And the final reason your puppy might be biting you is because of you. Are we doing things that are encouraging the rehearsal of the biting behavior? Puppies explore the world with their mouths. We cannot be surprised when they start mouthing us. Now I want to mention some red flags and things that I would look out for. These are the things that would lead me to go to a veterinary or clinical behaviorist and seek professional help. Number one would be drawing blood. A puppy might accidentally draw blood once, but once should be enough. I feel like this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. If your puppy has gone for or bitten any vulnerable adults or children in the home, that is an absolute no-go. You need somebody coming to your house to help you, like yesterday. Like you needed that yesterday. And then finally, I would look at the bite force. If your pup isn't aware of just how hard they're biting you, and even when you're reacting, they don't seem to care, I would seek some professional help. Now let's get into the good stuff, prevention. I did mention earlier on, we cannot fully stop biting. It is a natural behavior for a dog, but we can fulfill the need and teach them when and where it is appropriate to mouth and bite. The first one might be a bit of a shocker, but luring with food, if your puppy is really struggling with mouthing you, probably isn't the best thing to do. If you're putting food in front of your pup's mouth and then they're following that piece of food around, they're very likely to want to mouth at that piece of food and then be grabbing onto your hand. The next thing I would do is prevent any sort of rehearsal of the behavior. If you know that after a certain point in play, your pup gets overstimulated and tries to start launching themselves at you or mouthing you, I want you to stop before you even get to that point. We want to prevent any sort of rehearsal of this behavior. My next prevention tip would be to look at your puppy's space. A lot of pups are given free reign of the whole house, and I think this can be quite stressful for your puppy. If we have to keep removing our puppies from rooms and situations and digging through bins and things like that they find really rewarding, our pup might learn that mouthing and biting us in these scenarios gets you to stop that. And finally, I would play choice-based games. There are a lot of videos from a lot of different dog trainers, and every dog trainer has a different method of doing this. I always recommend Steve Mann's version or Susan Garrett's version. I mean, they're two of the biggest dog trainers for a reason. I start all of my sessions with these sorts of games. Even with adult dogs, even with dogs I have trained 1,000 times, I want a dog to learn that their choices lead to rewards. Okay, now let's move on to a prevention plan for our puppies mouthing and biting. The number one thing we can do is fulfill the need to mouth and bite. So how do you do this? You can give them things like chew toys or chew treats. But I would also really recommend on teaching your puppy how to safely and appropriately play one-to-one with you with mouthing and biting involved. I'm not talking of us, I'm talking about their toys. I think a lot of owners will pick small toys for their puppy, thinking my puppy's small, so they need a small toy. I would definitely say you need a toy that fits in the puppy's mouth, but I would pick a toy that has two things. Number one, length, and number two, something interesting on the end of it. But before we start doing any of that, we need to teach our puppy how to out or let go of a toy. We do this by teaching an incompatible behavior. With teaching an out cue, the incompatible behavior is space. This is going to help long term no matter what your puppy is holding on to, so I really need you to listen to this next part. The first thing you're going to do is encourage your puppy to grab onto the toy you're playing with. You are not going to do this by shoving the toy in their face. I want you to lure this toy along the floor. When you've been tugging for a few seconds, I want you to stop. I want you to absolutely freeze. You've suddenly become very uninteresting and your pup is probably going to let go. When your puppy lets go, I want you to do a few things. Number one, you're going to throw your food reward out away from you and say the word search. When your puppy is out going to get their food, I want you to bring the toy in close to you, and I don't want you to let your pup have it yet. This is when you can introduce the out cue to your puppy. So they let go, you can say out and then send them off for a search. The most important thing when it comes to release cues of any sort is that we are rewarding after the action. I really need you to remember that. If you are asking your dog for a release cue and they are not releasing, do not bring out the reward, do not bring out the food, do not try and bribe them out of it. The next issue a lot of people deal with when it comes to puppy mouthing and biting is touch, husbandry, and consent. Teaching your puppy how to consent to touch is really important and will prevent so much mouthing and biting. Finally, and maybe most importantly, what do I do if my puppy is biting me? The first thing you're going to do is freeze. That's exactly the same thing that we're going to do here. Worst thing you can do is flap or try and move away from your puppy. Dogs have an actual instinct to chase and grab. If you move away really quickly, it's just going to encourage your puppy to latch on. That is why the next step is super important. We're going to create space or slack. It's natural for any animal to pull against you when you pull against them. We want to become so uninteresting and so unreinforcing when it comes to grabbing onto us that the puppy just doesn't want to do it anymore. The next thing you can do in conjunction with creating slack is to yelp or vocalize. I find this really works. Some dog trainers really don't like it. You may be at the point where you have to physically remove them from you. This is called redirection, and for me there are two types of redirection: direct redirection and indirect redirection. I would begin with an indirect redirection. That can look like giving your dog a cue. If you think that your pup is ready to let go or has already let go, you can give the out cue and then reward with a search. What I don't want you to do is fall into the trap of, what's this? What's this? Actually ask your dog for an incompatible behavior. If this doesn't work and all else fails, you can go for a direct redirection. That does mean popping a piece of food right in front of the puppy's nose so they let go. This isn't my favorite way of doing things, but it gets the job done. The last and final thing that you can do is physically remove the puppy from you. None of us want to be doing this. We want our puppies to listen to us and learn an out cue. After any scenario where your puppy has latched onto you, bitten you or mouthed you, whether they've let go first time or you've had to peel their little miniature daggers off of you, I really need you to take a second and step back and assess the situation. What came prior to that biting or mouthing? I want you to note down when your puppy is biting, so what time of day, and what came before the bites, where your puppy is biting. So this might tell you what scenarios and things you do or don't want to give them access to. And number 3, what it is they're biting, like the texture of it. Biting and chewing and mouthing is naturally reinforcing for a puppy. I said this at the beginning, I said it in the middle, and now I'm going to say it at the end. You cannot stop a dog biting or mouthing. The best thing we can do is to fulfill that need in an appropriate way.